Nostalgia. A sentimental longing or wistful affection for the past, typically for a period or place with happy personal associations. Many things can trigger this emotion for us, whether that be a video game, a song, a movie, a line of toys, the flavor of a certain dish, the smell of something you distinctly remember from a time where things were easier. Whether that be from your childhood or even from a point in time just last year when you felt peace and like you can just sit back and just enjoy life, taking your surroundings, absorbing the current moment. The song you're hearing right now does that for me to an extent. It reminds me of being in college during the pandemic and how whenever I had a moment away from those classes I hated so much and homework that stressed me out, I would work on building this channel up, trying to make something out of it. The footage you're seeing right now on screen is from a storytime animation that I made from that period, and even me seeing this footage brings back oddly nice memories of the setup I had in my college dorm, with my blue snowball mic, to the wooden table I put everything on top of, to the crappy chair which was so uncomfortable to the point where I had to grab a pillow and put it on my back because it was just that uncomfortable. But I doubt you came to this video just to listen to me reminisce on times that once were. You came to know what this whole apparent dark side of nostalgia is, and don't worry, I will get to that. But first, I think it's important to understand what nostalgia is fundamentally.
If you grew up in the 80s, and by that I mean the 1680s, it would have been possible to have been nostalgic for a time before the word nostalgia existed. That's because in 1688, Johannes Hofer coined the term by combining the Greek words for returning home and pain. Nostalgia was originally seen as a quite serious medical condition, affecting soldiers who missed home so much that they broke down and were unable to fulfill their duties. The only cure, as Hofer saw it, was to be sent home, to your home, because nostalgia is really all about you.
Nostalgia truly is about you, and what makes you feel nostalgic depends entirely on your own experiences. I think a key part of our identity is the memories we've made, especially those formed in whatever place we used to call home or currently call home. Going back to Vsauce's video about nostalgia real quick, he briefly broke down the word and mentioned who coined said word, Johannes Hofer, who was a Swiss physician, and in his dissertation about nostalgia, he labeled it as a disease which happens, quote, because they are abandoned by the pleasant breeze of their native land, or because at some time they picture themselves enjoying this more. Despite the fact that this part I quoted comes from the introductory portion of his dissertation, with the context being how the Helvetians describe this feeling of nostalgia as, quote, the grief for the lost charm of the native land, which they call das Heimweh. I think this all highlights one of the earliest attempts at truly dissecting why we feel this. Eventually, this negative connotation that it's a disease or a form of depression became more positive, and it's something bittersweet to experience. In fact, whenever we feel nostalgia, our brain's reward system releases dopamine, which is a neurotransmitter that allows you to feel pleasure and satisfaction. For example, when you're starving and you're finally able to get your hands on a good meal to eat, dopamine releases. In a study approved by the Research Ethics Committee of Tokyo Metropolitan University and conducted in accordance with the Declaration of Helsinki, it was confirmed that there is, quote, the presence of nostalgia-related activity in both memory and reward systems, including the hippocampus, substantia nigra, ventral tegmental area, and ventral striatum. You can look into the whole study if you'd like. Links to all my sources, as per usual, are in the pastebin below, but pretty much the study went as follows. Quote, 15 right-handed young healthy female undergraduates were recruited and completed the fMRI experiment as described below. We assumed that nostalgia would be induced by triggers common to a relatively homogeneous subset of individuals within the same culture, age, and sex groupings. For instance, most Japanese people experienced similar events during the 6 years of compulsory education in elementary school. Memories of these times should contain common features, irrespective of the specific place in which participants grew up. This image was then created as a visual stimuli expected to induce nostalgia. Mainly the two images on the top row were supposed to give that sort of effect. And this was all done as part of an fMRI experiment which analyzing the data, specifically the ROIs, meaning region of interest. Quote, this meta-analysis has shown that the SN/VTA plays a role in reward anticipation, whereas the VMPFC functions during the reward outcome or reward receipt phase, and the VS is involved during both anticipation and outcome phases. It's not necessary that you completely understand the image you're seeing on screen right now. However, these highlighted areas of the brain are the regions that play a factor when experiencing nostalgia, specifically the hippocampus, responsible for our ability to learn and remember, substantia nigra, responsible for producing dopamine, the ventral tegmental area, responsible for mediating dopamine, the ventral striatum, responsible for rewarding experiences, and the ventral medial prefrontal cortex, responsible for aiding in moral and ethical decision making and self-perception. Now, the reason I made it a point to highlight all of this information is because, objectively speaking, our brains perceive nostalgia as something positive, with the areas in our brains responsible for memory, decision making, morals, and sending off dopamine or making us feel happy, even if only temporarily, all playing a role when we think of those good old days. Bring things back to Johannes Hofer, who had observed how Swiss mercenaries serving abroad would have an intense yearning to go back home. The Swiss mercenaries were a powerful group of soldiers constantly out at war, and if you know anything about war, being in one is not pleasant, since inherently war is conflict between opposing parties. World War II, the largest and deadliest war in human history, had an estimated 15 million soldiers who died while in battle, meaning to have come back home from all that happened during that period would have been a blessing. Those who finally returned home to their families after everything was over to reunite with their loved ones undoubtedly felt some sort of nostalgia of being in the presence of their families, especially husbands with their wives, because in the following years is when the baby boom happened, and in the US alone nearly 76 million babies were born, a more than 50% increase from years prior. All this to say, nostalgia is a good thing, and when it's triggered by something, it makes us think about the past, specifically points in time where life was generally more positive. And when things inevitably get difficult and you're at a low point in life, nostalgia can allow us to be inspired to want to overcome our current situation and try to make things how they used to be, even if they most likely won't, which leads me to my next point. I think nostalgia can help us go out there and make new memories. Time passes, people change, and you're no exception. The person you are today is different from the one you were yesterday, even if only slightly. Meaning, objectively, we can never experience those same moments in our lives that we feel most nostalgic about ever again. The best thing we can do is use those positive things we remember as a foundation when building our lives going into the future. Coming into this video, you probably were already under the impression that nostalgia was a mostly positive thing, but I wanted to give you all of this context for you to understand why objectively we as humans perceive it as something good. One thing I've noticed is that in general, everything in life requires some sort of balance. For example, I think we can all agree that water is great, and even if you don't drink it every day, you know you probably should. However, drinking too much can lead to hyponatremia, which is a life-threatening condition. I think the same principle applies to nostalgia. If we allow ourselves to depend on those nostalgic memories for our happiness and we overly use it as a crutch in life's low points, it impedes us from taking the necessary steps to bring our lives to a new overall high point. When I was still in college, stressed because of the amount of homework piling on me, I decided to play some throwbacks from my childhood. I remember feeling a sense of comfort, and it gave me the idea to go outside for a walk while listening to some Tyler the Creator and finally getting some fresh air after being cooped up in my dorm for hours. I'd say it was a step in the right direction, as going outside allowed me to gather my thoughts, form some sort of plan as to how I'm going to tackle life going forward. If I would have stayed inside listening to music, thinking about how life will never be the same, which objectively it won't, moping around, seeking temporary comfort from those throwbacks or from those shows I used to watch, I know this may sound drastic, but who knows if I would be at where I'm at today. This year I've already hit some goals I set for this channel, and I'm dead set on making this my full-time job. And if you'd like to help me create more content like this, consider helping out the channel on Patreon for only $5. There you'll find exclusive videos, sneak peeks, uncensored cuts of videos, and a lot more content which is soon to come over there. In the grand scheme of things, life is like vapor. We're here for a little bit and then we pass away. And although what I'm about to say will definitely sound kind of corny, and I know you've heard this saying before, but let's make the most out of life. I know everything passes, but even if we do something that positively impacts someone else's life, or even create some sort of nostalgic memory that could potentially inspire them and others in the future, in my book, that's a massive W, and honestly, that's the goal with this channel, and the reason I keep shilling my Patreon. I want to solely focus on making videos for you and quit my job, and if you support me there, that'd mean the world. But anyways, enough shameless promotion. Hi guys, what's up? I want to thank you guys so much for all of your support, for watching this video, and you know, for all of the support you've been showing the channel, y'all. Seriously, bro, is that my hair? Is that my hair sticking out? I seriously don't deserve any of your support, any of your subscription views, whatever. I don't. But I want to thank you guys so much for sticking with me, and for those who have been with me since I did this in a nutshell videos and all that stuff. Thank you. Thank you for being a real one and sticking with me, man. I know this video was a little bit different. It was like a more philosophical and video essay and documentary style type video, whatever. And just with how life is right now, I will try to put out the best content I can. Anyways, guys, I know you guys, I know nobody watches these parts of the video. I know they don't. Like, literally nobody watch. Every time, like, literally in the audience retention, bro, at this part where I'm like, you know, being all vulnerable and expressing myself or whatever, there's a drop off. All right, there's a drop off in the audience, which, you know, it's understandable. You know, nobody comes here for me. People come here for the content, and that's completely understandable, and I completely understand. You know what I'm saying? Not knocking it or nothing. I still feel like I should thank you guys. Like, I should be vulnerable to an extent. Like, I should express my gratitude, because it's just like, even though I only got 7K, you know what I'm saying, I'm not doing this full time, I am still extremely grateful to be in the position that I am in. Once again, thank you guys, and I'll see you guys in the next one.